covering climate, weather, and the industrial enterprise from Penn State Meteorology. Here is Up in the Air.
Welcome to this week's episode of Up in the Air. I'm Logan Westrope.
And I'm Kasey Rigner.
Kasey, is the first week of October still occurring? We haven't seen any hurricane activity in the Atlantic. Typically, we're still in this is peak season across the Atlantic for hurricanes, but luckily we are having a break. A lot of people still dealing with the effects that we had from Florence a few weeks ago.
Right, we do still have Carolina natives returning back to home, trying to get their lives back together after this devastating hurricane. But like you said, the Atlantic has been quiet, so hopefully it stays that way for the rest of hurricane season if possible, but
Exactly.
if not, for as long as it can.
Yeah, let's hope so. But this week's episode is full packed. We have stories on Cleveland, Ohio. We also have a story on a fisherman lost at sea, and also we have a package by Vivian Rennie on autumn festivals.
All that and more, but first, here's Update in the Air.
Early in the semester, I talked about how California was trying to become a clean energy state in the next few years. Now, Cleveland, Ohio is setting goals to shed its use of fossil fuels, joining 80 other U.S. cities to switch to renewable sources. One of the leading burners of fossil fuels is First Energy, an electric company that supplies to millions of people in the state of Ohio. The city announced on September 20th that the switch to the 100% renewable power goal will help to decrease the emissions of greenhouse gases to, quote, 80% below the 2010 level by 2050. The city plans to develop more offshore wind power turbines in Lake Erie and to increase the use of public transportation. Electric vehicle charging stations will also be implemented to cut down on the use of gasoline for fuel. Despite Cleveland being a heavy industrial city, its population has fallen, which now city officials hope it can be turned into an economic growth using clean energy. Columbus, Ohio is among the other states in the United States to follow a similar pattern, becoming 100% renewable energy. The remaining 80 cities have made pledges are in the work for the Ready for 100 campaign by the Sierra Club.
A massive hole ripped open on a Queensland, Australia beach caused by a landslip in this area, according to the Queensland Department of Environment and Science. Located at Inskip Point near Rainbow Beach, the hole is estimated to be a whopping 650 to 900 feet across and 25 feet deep. The slip occurred not far from where previous holes have opened in the past, including one in 2015 that forced campers to evacuate as a caravan, car, trailer, and tents were swallowed, according to Brisbane Times. Thankfully, no injuries or property damage were reported during the latest slip, and none of the nearby campsites were affected, the Queensland Park and Wildlife Services reported. Last week, Diana Journeau of Rainbow Beach Helicopters said, quote, "We fly there every day and it wasn't there yesterday," end quote. The Queensland government clarified that what caused the hole was better called a nearshore landslip rather than a sinkhole. It's likely this erosion has been caused by the undermining of a part of the shoreline by tidal flows, waves, and currents, said QPWS. When this occurs below the waterline, the shoreline loses support and a section slides seaward, leaving a hole, the edges of which regress back towards the shore. With slips in 2015, 2016, and now 2018, researchers believe this won't be the last one to be seen in the area.
Imagine being stuck on a trip from Indonesia to Guam, but not by plane, however, but by boat. Aldi Naval Adaling is a 19-year-old fisherman who was out on his boat in Indonesia and spent 49 days lost in the ocean. His job was to use lights to attract fish during the nighttime, though his plan wasn't to be fishing for nearly 2 months. As Aldi was fishing one day, the line that was anchoring the hut snapped off to strong winds on July 14th, then allowing for the fishing hut to drift with the atmospheric wind direction. Though after the day with strong winds, there were barely any steering patterns to allow for the hut to drift back towards the mainland. Aldi's hut was a small rectangular wooden platform protected by a thatched roof. According to NPR, he had a walkie-talkie, a small stove, and a generator, though his food, water, and fuel supplies were only to last him for a week. Eventually, after running out of fuel to cook, he burned the wooden fences to start a fire. In terms of drinking water, he sipped water from his clothes from the ocean spray. Despite many ships either not seeing Aldi or stopping, on August 31st, he was able to catch a ship that he could dial into a frequency with his radio, messaging that he needed help. On September 9th, after spending a week or so in a port in Japan, he returned safely to his family in Indonesia.
A new study suggests that plate tectonics, which is a scientific theory that divides Earth into large chunks of crust that move slowly over hot viscous mantle rock, could have been active from the planet's very beginning. The new findings contradict previous beliefs that plate tectonics were developed over the course of billions of years. The paper, published in Earth and Planetary Science Letters, has important implications in the field of geochemistry and geophysics. A better understanding of plate tectonics could help predict whether planets beyond our solar system could be hospitable for life. Nick Dijert, assistant professor of petrology and geochemistry in UT's Department of Earth and Planetary Sciences and co-author of the study, said, quote, "Plate tectonics set up the conditions for life. The more we know about ancient plate tectonics, the better we can understand how Earth got to be the way it is now." Digert's research with his team looked into the distribution of two very specific noble gas isotopes, helium-3 and neon-22. Noble gases are those that don't react with any other chemical elements. Previous models have explained Earth's current helium-3 and neon-22 ratio by arguing that a series of large-scale impacts resulted in massive magma oceans, which degas and incrementally increased the ratio each time. Dijert says that there is no physical evidence that this didn't happen. Helium-3 and neon-22 were produced during the formation of the solar system and not by other means. Dijert said, as such, these provide valuable insight into Earth's earliest conditions and subsequent geologic activity.
Welcome back to the show.
Now we have a package on autumn festivals by Vivian Rennie.
Can't read notes, but I play everything by ear. The music sounds just the way that I like to hear. I love to play, folks used to say. Sounds a little groupish to me.
In every corner of the country, fall festivals pop up to celebrate the changing of seasons and the autumn harvest. Costing an area more than $200,000 each fair. Between vendor costs and visitors' purchases, fairs can drive local economies as the leaves change. Local vendors earn the vast majority of their revenue with small daily fairs. Folk bands can gain massive recognition when performing for large groups at many fairs. Besides economic gains, fairs have a massive impact on the morale and community spirit of an area.
The Penn State Pumpkin Festival at the Arboretum is really getting me in an autumnal mood.
The Harvest Festival brings a long-standing tradition of bringing joy to communities and a space for local vendors and artists to show off their products to a large audience.
I like seeing all the leaves change and just like the beautiful colors that turn from the trees.
Bringing communities together with a competitive activity and other seasonal activities. At this year's Penn State Arboretum Pumpkin Festival, over 200 pumpkin carvers competed for the title of the Blue Ribbon Pumpkin. This festival is shown to boost community morale and instill a fighting community spirit. While community pride may seem unimportant, in a study done by the Melbourne Global Research Initiative, raising community spirit increases economic stability and economic resilience within local economies. Building a healthy community is down to those who inhabit it. As the leaves fall and temperatures plummet, consider attending a local autumn fair. By attending, you promote local vendors, support bands, and increase the economic resilience of your hometown. For Up in the Air, I'm Vivian Rennie.
Welcome back to the show. Kasey, first week of fall down, first week of October rather. Seems like the pattern has not changed yet. Temperatures are still pretty above normal for this time of year. All throughout this week we've been sitting in the 70s. Some of that humidity has also creeped back towards our region. In terms of precipitation, we've been a little bit better. We've only seen a few thunderstorms, especially on Tuesday. Other than that, we stayed pretty dry and we saw some sun throughout this week, so not too bad, but still pretty warm. I don't know.
I'm ready for those 60s. I'm ready for the leaves to start changing colors. Mother Nature come help us out.
I know,
right?
it's funny because you look out your window and most of the trees are still green and haven't changed a lot. But hopefully, if we turn to Mike Susko on the climate wall, we have some good news in store as he may tell us that we have a pattern change coming up. Mike?
Well, Logan and Kasey, I can tell you that we will be seeing temperatures hold around in the 60s as far as averages go. However, as far as high temperatures go, that's a different story. We're going to be in the 70s, as you will see. But like I mentioned, average high this time of year, 65 degrees, with our average low at 46 degrees. So as the sun begins to set earlier and earlier, those averages will continue to dip. Our record high, 1919 was when it was set. 84 degrees was our high. We won't be anywhere near that, at least in this upcoming week. And our low was back in 1974 at 25 degrees. Luckily, we won't be getting anywhere near that either. Taking a look at your temperature outlook across the nation for October 9th to the 15th, you can see it's a tale of two countries, so to speak. Everywhere from the west of the Mississippi, with the exception of Arkansas, Louisiana, and southern half of Texas, will see below normal temperatures. Everywhere to the east, we'll see above normal temperatures. And that is because we're going to see a trough pattern set up in the west with a ridge in the east. And over here, especially in Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wyoming, they're going to be the bullseye for the below normal temperatures, and even seeing some snow in the higher elevations. And you can see here on the eastern side of the Mississippi, especially around the eastern seaboard, you see dark red with those above normal temperatures. Now, keep in mind for here in Pennsylvania, I know most of us here, with the exception of the Northwest, are in that darker red. Keep in mind, this is above average temperatures, and that means that anything above 65 as of October 4th is considered above average. So this darker red, the mid-70s could throw us in there. So it's not going to be oppressive like upper 80s and 90s, but it's going to be warmer than we would normally be this time of year. Now, taking a look at your precip outlook, I just want to mention this real quick. This graphic was giving us troubles. The precip outlook has been on strike, so to speak, for the last week. But the reason we're showing you this right now is because the bullseye right here around Lake Michigan is still pretty consistent with the latest outlook. So you can see that is going to be that darker green. That is pretty much consistent. Everywhere to the east of that is also going to see above normal precipitation, and also pretty much extending everywhere across the west as well, with the exception being Washington and Oregon. They are actually going to see below precipitation during this time period. But also you can take a look down here in the Four Corners states, where we have been seeing exceptional drought for the last couple of months. We are still going to see a wet pattern. So that is good news, especially because we need the rain in those areas. But here in Pennsylvania specifically, this is actually pretty close. We just would need to shift this line a little bit more to the west, and we would be right on target. So pretty much above normal precipitation for Pennsylvania, most of that being to the west. So it does look like we'll have a wet pattern over the next week. Again, the drought monitor, you can see most of that drought in the northern and central Rockies, also extending down into the Four Corners regions, where it's again been over the last couple of months. But thankfully, we have seen some rain from what was Hurricane Rosa at one point. That had made its way through the southwestern desert, and we're still seeing a wet pattern set up. So hopefully we can get that exceptional drought down to at least a moderate over the next couple of days. That will be good news for the folks there. Pennsylvania, we are drought free once again, no worries, and that makes sense because we've been seeing a very wet pattern, especially the last couple of weeks. Taking a look at your fall foliage report from the foliagenetwork.com, you can see pretty much northern Pennsylvania, we're starting to see the colors begin to change over a little bit. Everywhere to the south being just no change right now, but that will be changing in the next couple of weeks. Taking a look at your weekend forecast, 74 and 75, so we are going to be about 10 degrees above average for this time of year, but we will see some sunshine with more sun on Sunday than on Saturday. So Kasey and Logan, we're going to see the above average temperatures last a little longer, but those leaves are beginning to change over.
Yeah, it's nice to have the 70s. I can't argue with that. But as we turn into October, it'd be nice to have some cooler weather into our pattern. Doesn't look like it's going to be the case, though, as the CPC has put us under above normal chance for higher temperatures. So looks like we're going to have to rough
At least
it out
the leaves
again.
are starting to change. That's all I heard through all of that. So that's what I'm excited about.
Exactly. So hopefully in the next few weeks we'll have some better news as we turn towards more into October. For fall. Well, that's all the time we have for this week's episode of Up in the Air. I'm Logan Westrope.
And I'm Kasey Rigner.
And be sure to tune in back next week, Up in the Air.